The damp chill of the forest floor seeped through the worn leather of my boots, a familiar discomfort that kept me anchored to the present. Here, on the midnight patrol, I was just another shadow among the pines, a nameless wolf in the Stone Creek pack. Invisibility was my shield, my sanctuary. I kept my head down, my shoulders hunched, and my gaze fixed firmly on the ground. It was a posture of submission, one I had perfected over a decade of survival. It kept anyone from looking too closely. It kept them from seeing the one thing that would get me killed or claimed, the secret I kept hidden beneath my lowered lashes. A tremor ran through the earth, not of footfalls, but of power. It vibrated up my spine, a low hum of pure, undiluted authority that made the hairs on my arms stand on end. Every wolf in our territory felt it. The Alpha King had arrived. Panic, cold and sharp, pierced the numb exhaustion of my patrol. I was supposed to be relieved in an hour, tucked away in my small, barren room at the back of the pack house before the formal welcome began. His visit was unannounced, a show of strength to the border packs, and our Alpha, Marcus, had been scrambling for 2 days. The air thickened, charged with the scent of ozone, ancient forests, and raw dominance. It was a scent that smothered all others, demanding obeisance. I finished my circuit, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I just needed to get back, to disappear before he saw me. But as I slipped through the back gate, the courtyard was already swarming. Warriors stood in rigid formation. Pack members, dressed in their finest, lined the path to the main hall, their heads bowed. And there, in the center of it all, stood a figure who seemed to suck all the light and air toward himself. Alpha King Kalen. He was larger than the legends described, a monolith of muscle and controlled fury. His black hair was wild, brushing against the collar of a simple leather tunic that did little to hide the sheer breadth of his shoulders. But it was his presence that stole the breath from my lungs. It was an oppressive weight, a physical force that demanded you kneel. I ducked my head lower, my mud-caked boots a stark contrast to the polished stone, and tried to skirt the edge of the crowd. Don't look up. Don't be seen. The mantra was a prayer, a desperate plea to the moon goddess I wasn't sure I still believed in. I was almost clear, my hand reaching for the servant's entrance, when his voice cut through the respectful silence. You? The word was not a shout, but it carried like a thunderclap. It struck me in the center of my back, freezing me in place. The entire pack turned, their collective gaze following his. My blood turned to ice. He couldn't mean me. He couldn't. I was nothing, a ghost, a stray taken in on pity. The patrol, he commanded, his voice a low growl that vibrated in my bones. Step forward. My feet were lead. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to shift and vanish into the woods. But the king's command was absolute. To disobey was to invite death. With trembling legs, I turned and forced myself to walk toward the center of the courtyard, the space around him a vacuum of terror and awe. I stopped a respectful 10 feet away, my head bowed so low my chin nearly touched my chest, my dark brown hair falling like a curtain to hide my face. I sank into a deep bow of submission. Alpha King, I murmured, my voice a broken whisper. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I could feel his gaze on me, a physical weight pressing down. It wasn't the dismissive glance of an alpha to an omega, it was sharp, analytical, and searching. The scent of him was overwhelming now, a dizzying mix of pine and storm that made my inner wolf, long dormant and cowed, stir with a terrifying yearning. Your name, he said. It wasn't a question. Elara, sire. Look at me, Elara. The command was quiet, almost gentle, but it held the unyielding power of a landslide. No. I couldn't. If he saw, if he even suspected. The memories flashed behind my eyelids, fire, screams, the glint of silver eyes in the reflection of a bloody blade. My parents' eyes. My eyes. I squeezed them shut, my knuckles white where I gripped my hands together. I cannot, Alpha King. It is not my place. A low growl rumbled from his chest, a sound that made the very stones beneath my feet vibrate. I did not give you a choice. He moved. I didn't see it, but I felt the air shift, the sudden displacement of power as he closed the distance between us. His shadow fell over me, and the heat radiating from his body was a furnace. Two large fingers, calloused and strong, landed under my chin. They were surprisingly gentle, yet their touch was a brand, sending a jolt of pure shock through me. The mate bond, a myth whispered in hushed tones, flared to life inside me like a supernova, a blinding, agonizing recognition that I had spent my entire life praying to avoid. He was my mate. This terrifying, dominant king who commanded the world. And he was about to uncover the one secret that had kept me alive. Look at me. Each word was a soft, deliberate command, laced with an authority that was impossible to resist. My body betrayed me. My muscles, screaming in protest, obeyed the Alpha King's will. My head tilted upward, slowly, agonizingly. My hair slid back. I kept my eyes squeezed shut, a final, desperate act of defiance. I could feel his breath on my face, could smell the faint scent of rain on his skin. This was it. This was the end of my quiet, hidden life. Open your eyes, he whispered, his voice now a raw, husky thing. A tear slipped from beneath my lid, tracing a path of fire down my cold cheek. I couldn't fight him anymore. The power in his voice, in his touch, in the bond now screaming between us, was too much. Slowly, my eyelids fluttered open. For a moment, all I saw was the sharp line of his jaw, the dark stubble, the intense focus in his own eyes, which were the color of molten gold. Then his gaze met mine, and the world fell away. A sharp hiss of indrawn breath was the only sound in the dead-silent courtyard. I saw the shock ripple through him, the raw disbelief that widened his golden eyes. He saw them. He saw the impossible. Not the plain brown eyes of a low-ranking pack member, but the luminous, moon-silver irises of a lineage thought to be extinct. The eyes of a lunar wolf. The eyes that marked me as both royalty and a target. His fingers tightened on my chin, not painfully, but with an anchor's finality. The world saw a king claiming a subordinate. But in the inferno of his gaze, I saw something else. Possession. Wonder. And a darkness that promised he would never, ever let me go. My carefully constructed world of shadows had just been set on fire. His gaze held mine, a vortex of molten gold swallowing the silver of my own. The pack's collective gasp seemed a distant echo, the world narrowing to the space of a single breath between us. His thumb stroked my jaw, a gesture so intimate it felt like a violation in this terrifyingly public space. The bond between us wasn't just a pull anymore, it was a physical chain, yanking my soul toward his. Mine, he breathed, the word a possessive rumble meant only for me, yet it carried the weight of a royal decree. Panic clawed its way up my throat, hot and acidic. I jerked my head back, breaking the contact. The loss of his touch was like a physical blow, leaving my skin cold and tingling. I stumbled a step away, wrapping my arms around myself. No, I whispered, the denial torn from a place of pure terror. His expression hardened, the brief flicker of wonder replaced by the unyielding mask of a king. What did you say? My alpha, Marcus, finally found his voice. He rushed forward, his face pale with fear. Your Majesty, forgive her. Elara is simple. She has known great trauma. She means no disrespect. Kalen didn't even glance at him. His golden eyes remained locked on me, pinning me in place. She will be moved to my chambers. Now? The order was absolute. Two of his royal guard, massive wolves in human form, stepped forward. Their movements were fluid and predatory. I flinched back, my heart hammering against my ribs. This was happening too fast. Chambers. His chambers. The implication was a suffocating shroud. He wasn't just acknowledging the bond, he was enacting it, bypassing every tradition, every choice I might have had. I will not, I said, my voice shaking but clear. The words felt foreign in my own mouth. I had never defied an alpha, let alone the king. But the terrified Omega, who had spent a decade making herself small, was being shoved aside by something older, something fiercer that his presence had awakened. Kaelin's jaw clenched. A ripple of power rolled off him, forcing Marcus and several nearby wolves to their knees. I swayed but remained standing, my own latent abilities, long suppressed, instinctively rising to meet the wave of dominance. It was like bracing against a hurricane. "You will test my patience, little wolf?" he asked, his voice dangerously soft. Before I could answer, he moved, closing the distance in a single, silent stride. He didn't touch me. He didn't have to. He leaned in close, his scent enveloping me, his voice a low vibration against my ear. "Every wolf in this territory is now aware of you. They saw your eyes. They felt our bond ignite. Rogues, enemies, rivals, they all know a lunar wolf, a prize of immense power, is here and unclaimed. You can either walk into my protection, or you can be torn apart by the wolves who will come for you before sunrise. The choice is yours." His words were a cold, calculated strike, and they hit their mark. He was right. My secret wasn't just mine anymore. It was a beacon. My anonymity, my only defense, was gone. He had stripped it from me with a single command. He wasn't offering a choice, he was describing a cage, and asking me to name my warden. Him, or the monsters in the dark. My shoulders slumped in defeat. The fight drained out of me, replaced by a bone-deep weariness. I gave a single, jerky nod. Satisfaction gleamed in his eyes. He straightened up, his regal authority settling back over him like a cloak. "Jorik, Lyra, escort her," he commanded his guards. "No one is to approach her. No one speaks to her. She is under my personal protection." He glanced at Marcus, his expression cold. "And you and I will have a discussion about why a wolf of her lineage was hidden from me," scrubbing floors on her hands and knees. Marcus paled, swallowing hard. The two guards flanked me, their presence a silent, immovable wall. They guided me away from the stunned crowd, their bodies shielding me from the curious, fearful stares. I kept my eyes on the ground, but it was useless now. The image of my silver eyes was burned into the memory of the entire pack. I was no longer Alara the ghost. I was Alara, the king's, what? His property. His mate. His prisoner. They led me into the main pack house and up the grand staircase to the Alpha's wing, a section of the building I had only ever seen from a distance while cleaning. The royal chambers were opulent, a world away from my stark cot. Rich tapestries hung on the stone walls, and a massive hearth crackled with a warm fire. The room smelled overwhelmingly of him, pine, storm, and king. It was suffocating. One of the guards, the female named Lyra, gestured to a side door. "A bathing chamber is through there. Food and clothes will be brought. The king will join you after his meeting with Alpha Marcus." Her tone was professional, devoid of emotion. I was a package to be delivered and secured. I nodded numbly, not trusting my voice. They took up positions outside the main door, their powerful forms a clear message: there was no escape. I walked into the bathing chamber on unsteady legs. A large copper tub already steamed with hot water, scented with herbs. It was a luxury I hadn't experienced in years. Stripping off my rough, dirty patrol clothes, I sank into the heat, the water stinging the scrapes and scratches on my skin. I scrubbed myself raw, as if I could wash away his scent, his touch, the brand of his claim on my soul. But it was useless. He was inside me now, a fire in my blood, the bond a constant, humming presence that tied my fate to his. Leaning my head back against the cool copper, I finally let the tears fall, silent and hot. For 10 years, I had survived. I had honored my parents' last wish, to live, to stay hidden. I had crushed my own spirit, my own wolf, to do it. And in a single moment, with a single command, Alpha King Kalen had destroyed it all. He thought he was offering protection, but all I felt was the cold, hard reality of a new cage, gilded and far more dangerous than the one I had built for myself. The door to the main chamber opened and closed. Heavy footsteps approached the bathing room. My breath hitched. He was here. I had Alpha Marcus severely disciplined. Kalen's voice came through the door, deep and resonant. For his negligence. For allowing a treasure like you to be treated like refuse. I didn't answer, pressing myself further into the water, as if it could hide me. I know you are frightened, Elara. His voice was softer now, the hard edge of command gone, replaced by something I couldn't decipher. Frustration. Regret? I did not handle that well. My instincts took over. Seeing you, seeing your eyes, it was like the sun rising for the first time. He was trying to soothe me, but his words only made it worse. He saw my eyes as a treasure. My parents had seen them that way too. And it had gotten them slaughtered. The people who hunted us didn't see a treasure. They saw an abomination, a power to be stolen or extinguished. They are a curse, I finally said, my voice hoarse. They are a death sentence. You haven't protected me. You've painted a target on my back for the entire world to see. There was a long silence. I heard him move, the sound of leather creaking as he sat in a chair just outside the door, giving me a semblance of privacy. Then I will be your shield, he stated, his voice ringing with absolute certainty. Let them come. Let them see the Alpha King stand before you. They will find only death if they try to harm what is mine. His possessiveness was a suffocating blanket. He didn't understand. He saw power and prestige where I saw a history of pain. He saw a mate to be claimed, while I saw the man who had just single-handedly destroyed my life's work of survival. The bond might scream that he was my other half, my fated partner, but my mind, scarred and cautious, only screamed one word, threat. I rose from the water, wrapping myself in a thick linen towel. My decision was made. He could post 1,000 guards. The bond could shackle my very soul. But I would not be his prize. I would not be his queen or his possession. I had to find a way to escape. Not just from his enemies, but from him. Dressed in the simple but fine silk tunic and leggings left for me, I felt like a doll being prepared for display. I stepped out of the bathing chamber, my hair still damp and clinging to my back. Kalen was standing by the hearth, staring into the flames. He turned as I entered, and his golden eyes swept over me. The raw hunger there made me take an involuntary step back. He saw my fear, and a muscle in his jaw tightened. He gestured to a table laden with food, roasted chicken, fresh bread, cheese, and fruit. You need to eat. You're too thin. It was a command disguised as a concern. I walked to the table, my legs stiff, and sat down. I picked at a piece of bread, my stomach a tight knot of anxiety. The silence in the room was a living thing, filled with the unspoken tension of the bond and the chasm of our different worlds. Tell me about them, he said, his voice quiet as he sat opposite me. Your eyes. Your family. The sigil on your tunic was that of the Silver Moon Pack. They were annihilated over a decade ago. The bread turned to ash in my mouth. I dropped it, my hand trembling. I don't want to talk about it. Elara, he said, and my name was a warning. Secrets between mates are a poison. I am bound to you. Your pain is my pain. Your enemies are my enemies. I cannot protect you from a shadow I do not understand. You are not my mate, I spat, the words tasting like venom. The goddess made a mistake. I reject it. I reject you. The temperature in the room plummeted. The fire in the hearth seemed to shrink. A low, guttural growl escaped his throat, a sound of pure, wounded rage. He shot to his feet, the heavy wooden chair scraping violently against the stone floor. He loomed over the table, his hands clenched into fists at his sides, his body radiating a power so immense it felt like gravity was doubling. You will not, he snarled, his golden eyes blazing with fury. You do not have that right. The bond is forged. It is done. You did this. I cried, rising to face him, my own fear finally eclipsed by a wave of desperate anger. I was safe. I was invisible. You strode in here with all your power and authority, and you ripped my life apart because of your instincts. You talk of protection, but you are the greatest danger I have ever faced. His face contorted, a mixture of fury and something that looked shockingly like pain. You think hiding was living. You think being a frightened mouse scurrying in the shadows was what you were born for. I saw you in that courtyard. Your spirit is a caged eagle, and I have just shattered the bars. You hate me for it now, but you will thank me one day. Thank you. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. They will come for me. The ones who killed my family. They hunt those with silver eyes. They believe we steal the moon's light, that our power is a blasphemy. They won't just kill me. They'll torture me. They'll perform their rituals to steal what I am. That is the fate you've just condemned me to. The raw truth of my words finally seemed to penetrate his alpha rage. The fury in his eyes receded, replaced by a dawning horror. He stared at me, truly seeing the depth of the terror I lived with every single day. He had thought he'd found a treasure, a long-lost queen. I had just told him he'd found a sacrificial lamb. He sank back into his chair, running a hand over his face. The oppressive weight of his power lessened. Who are they? He asked, his voice strained. Give me a name. The Purifiers, I whispered, the name itself feeling like a curse on my tongue. A cult of wolves who believe any lineage touched by the goddess's direct light is an impurity that must be cleansed. Kalen went still. I saw recognition and a cold, deadly understanding in his eyes. He had heard of them. They were more than just a pack of rogue zealots. They were an ancient, insidious threat. They are why you are the last, he stated, his voice flat. They hunted and exterminated the entire Silver Moon pack. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. I watched him, my enemy, my mate, my captor, as he processed this. I saw the gears turning in his mind, the king assessing a new, far more dangerous political and military threat than he had anticipated. His fight was no longer just with my defiance. It was with my history. He looked at me, his golden eyes dark with a grim resolve. Then they have just made an enemy of the Alpha King. They want to hunt you. They will have to come through me and my entire army. You are not a curse, Elara. You are my mate. And I will burn the world to ash before I let them touch you. His vow was terrifying in its intensity, a promise of violence on a scale I couldn't comprehend. He thought it was a comfort. But all I heard was the declaration of a war I would be the center of. He hadn't just shattered the bars of my cage, he'd placed me in the middle of a battlefield. The next few days were a blow of gilded confinement. Kalen was true to his word. I was never left alone. His guard, Jorik and Lyra, were my constant, silent shadows. He moved his command center into the adjoining parlor, conducting the business of his kingdom from a massive oak table, his voice a constant, authoritative rumble through the wall. He was establishing his territory, and I was the jewel at its heart. He tried to be gentle. He brought me meals himself, asking about my preferences. He had books brought from the Pack Library, ancient tomes on werewolf history and lore. He was trying to court me, to show me the world he wanted to give me. But every gesture felt like another link in a chain. He was trying to make my prison comfortable. One evening, he entered my room to find me staring out the large, barred window at the moon. It was almost full, and its light seemed to call to something deep inside me. "It makes you stronger, doesn't it?" he asked, his voice soft. He stood behind me, close enough that I could feel his body heat, but not touching. "The moonlight. Your power is tied to it." I didn't deny it. "It's how they track us. The power shines too brightly under the full moon. It's how they found my family." He was silent for a long moment. "I have sent riders to every corner of the continent," he finally said. "My best intelligence officers. They are hunting for any information on the purifiers. We will find their bases. We will find their leaders. We will eradicate them." "You can't fight a belief, Kalen," I said, using his name for the first time. It felt heavy and strange on my tongue. "They are everywhere and nowhere. They hide within stable packs, whispering their poison. Then we will teach them to fear the light you carry more than they hate it," he vowed. He took a hesitant step closer. "Elara, I know you see me as a tyrant. I know I forced this upon you. But the bond, it is a physical agony to be near you and to not be able to comfort you. To not be able to touch you." His vulnerability was a crack in his kingly armor. I could feel the truth of his words in the thrumming of the bond between us. It was a constant hum beneath my skin, a yearning for proximity that my mind fought against every second. "Touch is not comfort to someone who has only known it to cause pain," I whispered, my gaze still fixed on the moon. His sharp intake of breath told me he understood. He didn't push. He simply stood there, sharing the silence, his powerful presence a strange, unwanted shield against the darkness outside. It was in that moment that a sliver of something other than fear pierced my heart. He was trying, in his own dominant, alpha way, to understand. He was a king learning a language he had never needed to speak, the language of trauma. And for the first time, I wondered if the cage he'd built might, just maybe, be the one place I could finally be safe. But the thought was so terrifying, so alien, that I shoved it away. Safety was an illusion. I knew that better than anyone.